Who has the best D&D episode? Is it Gravity Falls, or Voltron Legendary Defender, or is it My Little Pony? Let the debate commence! Hello everyone, welcome to a special D&D review here on Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And when I last left y'all off with a D&D video which was about the Mighty Nine vs. Goblin Slayer, which was awesome, so go check it out. I said we wanted to talk about the writing potential in playing Dungeons & Dragons. And that's because as a storytelling game, Dungeons & Dragons can serve as a wonderful enhancement to any other story you are trying to tell. To help illustrate this point, I am going to compare a few D&D specials in different shows and determine who has the best D&D episode of them all. As I said in the beginning, I will be comparing episodes from Gravity Falls, Voltron Legendary Defender, and My Little Pony. Yep, you heard me right on that. But how am I going to break down and rank these episodes? D&D campaigns are wide and varied because you can do literally anything that you want. And because of that, results and experiences will most definitely be different among different people. How then can I possibly be objective about these episodes when Dungeons & Dragons means a lot of different things to a lot of different people? It comes down then to what sits at the heart of all D&D campaigns and what they can bring to the shows and stories that utilize them. So let's begin with the fundamentals. First, D&D is a collaborative effort on the part of all the players in shared imagination and storytelling. For a show to present a good D&D episode, it must embrace the idea of imagination and collective cooperative storytelling. Second, Dungeons & Dragons is a game of rules, even if they are homebrewed. Where there are no rules, the game is unentertaining chaos. Therefore, the show must make a decent attempt at explaining and sticking to those rules. Third, with D&D becoming more and more accessible and accepted than ever before, we see a lot of these episodes focusing on inviting new players in and developing relationships. This is one of the most crucial aspects of the game in real life. Where there are no good relationships between players and their characters, there can be no good storytelling and things fall apart quickly. Fourth and finally, we should consider what importance the episode has for the overall plot of the show. Many times these kinds of homage episodes to one of the crowning jewels of all things nerd are just there to provide callbacks and quote-unquote fun stuff for the geeks in the audience to enjoy. It's like the showrunners are basically screaming, "We love you nerds! Please give us views and money!" But when done right, the show's details on how D&D is important to the characters in the overall plot will then also mirror how D&D has been important to the viewers who are watching and enjoying these particular episodes. It helps to solidify the prominence and importance of the game in both the show and in our own lives. So those are the four things that I am looking for. And therefore, on a scale of 1 to 10, I will be ranking the following 3 episodes along these questions. Question number 1, is it imaginative? And honestly, does it also kind of incorporate the whole joint storytelling? But really that plays into everyone being on the same level of imagination. Question 2, does it attempt to follow the rules? Question 3, does it focus on relationships? And question 4, does it help further the overall plot? Now, with all of that explained, let's jump into the fun. The 3 episodes are Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons in Gravity Falls, Monsters and Mana for Voltron, and Ogres and Oubliettes for My Little Pony. And I guess I should give a quick spoiler warning here. There will be lots of spoilers, especially for Gravity Falls. Now, the second season of Gravity Falls takes a very interesting turn with its episode Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons. Because right after the insane, over-the-top, spoiler-heavy reveal that the mysterious author of the journals that holds all the secrets to the bizarre town of Gravity Falls is none other than Stanford Pines, Stanley's twin brother. all of Gravity Falls and the Pines family are in free fall, trying to cope with the reveal and the literally earth-shattering consequences that came with it. Dipper Pines has wanted to know who the author has been all summer long, and now is his chance. But Ford Pines locks himself in the basement with his secrets and the portal that trapped him for decades in the multiverse. So Dipper tries to bond with his twin sister Mabel and the others at the Mystery Shack through his favorite game, Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons. But everyone is put off by the rules and the math that is involved. Especially the graph paper. Oh, the graph paper! Oh, the humanity! But an accident leads to Ford and Dipper realizing that they both love the game, and they begin to finally bond by playing it. As they get to know each other, Ford reveals that he has a magical item, the infinity-sided die, that could change the entire world based on whatever it rolls. And it could be anything. Their love of the game clashes, however, with the rest of the family wanting to use the family room to watch the final season of Detective, which is 10 times better than Sherlock. Fight me! Ford and Stan get into an argument, and Stan hits Ford's dice bag, accidentally unleashing the power of the infinity-sided die and making the game of D&D and more D become real. The Vecna stand-in Probabilitor the Annoying arrives and kidnaps Dipper and Ford to eat their brains. Mabel, Stan, and Grenda must then embark on an epic quest to rescue them, culminating in their having to play the game itself. At first they are stunned and don't know how to beat Probabilitor until Ford tells them that the game is not only one of strategy and numbers, but also imagination and risk, two things that Mabel and Stan love. They finally get into the game, and in its just true epic and random style, they manage to defeat Probabilitor. The entire final battle is something right out of a good, hilarious D&D session, where even the Dungeon Master has no idea what's going on anymore. Stan finally saves his twin and great-nephew by cheating to get a perfect 38-sided die to roll 38 and defeat the Impossibeast. The family makes up for their misunderstandings and return home. They enjoy the season finale of Detective, and Ford promises Dipper that he can use the infinity-sided die should the need ever arise. He also reveals that he has dismantled the portal and contained a bit of pure chaos. Should that chaos ever be released, it could destroy the world. End episode. So how does it rate on my scales? The episode is itself wonderfully imaginative, and all the story aspects are great, including Stan's reaction to questing, but the fight with Probabilitor is incredibly inventive and engaging. It takes the imagination aspect of the players to the utmost max. Cast Centaur! Yeah! Just for that, I am giving this episode 10 out of 10 for imagination. The episode does have rules, but they are hilariously complicated to justify everyone's initial frustration with the game. Probabilitor simplifies them, but the game's ending is really based on cheating and hidden dice rolls. We really don't see what's happening as they're rolling the dice. We just see the consequences of them rolling the dice. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 for attempting to follow the rules. Now, does it focus on relationships? Yes, it does. Ford and Dipper bonding. The cracks in Mabel and Dipper's relationship are widened by the end of the episode, and Ford and Stan clash, and even Dipper thinks about obsessing over Wendy again. I personally ship it. This episode is a brilliant follow-up to all of the previous episodes' drama. Once again, I have to give it 10 out of 10. And does it fit into the main plot? Yup. It is a great continuation of the tale of two Stans and not what he seems. And it sets the stage for the rest of the season in regards to the characters and the chaos that Bill will use later to incite Weirdmageddon. My only complaint in terms of continuity is that the infinity-sided die is never brought back into play. So, for that, it gets a generous 9 out of 10 for me. That is a total of 34 out of 40. Ta-da! We then come to Voltron's Monsters and Mana. This is the most straightforward D&D episode of the batch. Nearly all of it is played out in-game. Pidge and Hunk are waiting for their home base, the Castle of Lions, to run a diagnostic on a shielding conundrum, and have plenty of free time now on their hands. Shiro is looking for a way to get over a headache and relax. Allura is waiting for Lotar to call her back. And Lance is bored and wants to spend time with Allura. Darn those romantic triangles. And Coran wants to have some fun with a game that he absolutely loves. Enter Monsters and Mana. Pidge and Hunk play a dwarf fighter and human mage, respectively. They are trying to save Hunk's village after everyone was turned to stone. A knowledgeable bartender has them going onto a quest to stop ogres and collect magical crystals, which they bring back to the bar and meet Shiro, a paladin searching for the demon who killed his mentor. They all team up to find the evil wizard Danak, who is responsible for petrifying Hunk's village. As they go along their journeys, they meet Allura the archer and Lance the furry ninja thief. They go to the Tomb of Horrors in order to stop the evil wizards, as one does in a dungeon crawl. Once entering the tomb, they play through a barrage of encounters and puzzles that hilariously and very accurately capture the feel of playing Dungeons & Dragons, and also makes you wish that this episode was stretched out across 2 or more episodes just that way you could get everything. They find a bunch of great loot at the end of their dungeon crawl, but the bartender arrives and reveals himself to be the wizard! He kills Shiro, whose twin comes back, also Shiro. Together they use teamwork and spells to crush the wizard, but then he is reborn on the cursed ground as the new Koranic dragon. Basically, Koran as a dragon. And then using another brilliant move that could only be conceived from actually having played D&D, the paladins of Voltron in their D&D avatars multiply a bunch of pastries and rolls, turn them into oil, and then set them on fire to burn the dragon. They win the campaign, and the lives of the characters move on as Pidge and Hunk now begin to discover solutions to their conundrum through the game that they played. And Lotar finally calls Allura. This is one thing that definitely wouldn't happen because there's always a random phone call right in the middle of the best action. It sucks. But Shiro gets over his headache and he and Lance agree to play again so Koran can reveal the next chapter in their adventure. Once again, a straight D&D episode. For imagination, this by-the-book D&D episode still scores pretty high. Koran stresses the need to be creative, and he makes up an amazing story on the spot, and all the players contribute in fun, unique ways. And Shiro, sure enough, continues to reject creativity, only so that way he can be a paladin. But other than that, it's pretty great. It honestly felt like one of the best D&D episodes I've ever watched in any kind of show. And so for the teamwork, for the process of imagination, for the on-the-spot storytelling, I give it a 9 out of 10. So for the rules, this episode does extremely well when it comes to following its own rules, at least as far as we know them. It spends a lot of time with the players making fun characters, like, I know, kind of character inception right here, but it's really neat to watch as we get to see character building happen on screen. They even keep track of mana, supplies, and health, and you gotta love the nods that they make to all the different arcade games. So, easily a 9 out of 10 for me. But what about the relationships? This episode gives us much needed Hunk and Pidge interactions, but there is little character development to be spoken of within this episode. This is one of the show's main sins, that it shorthands Hunk and rarely focuses on the amazing dynamic between him and Pidge. We get to see all of the characters working together as a team in a fantasy setting and building up their relationships. But Allura does ditch them to go hang out with Lotar, so minus a point on principle. And I will give it a 7 out of 10 then. Now we come to this episode's impact on the overall plot. Honestly, it's almost non-existent. This was just a fun filler that hinted at the not-so-secret fact that Shiro, that we see playing the game, is clearly a clone. There are also a couple of other fun hints to their previous adventures, and one could even argue that the wizard in disguise and the Koranic dragon are hints at Lotar's real goals and identity. But that is kind of a subjective interpretation. So I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10 for being somewhat clever, unless someone can show me concrete details that say that the writers for this episode planned it out to be indicative of the entire show thus far. That is a total of 29 out of 40 for Voltron. Finally, we have My Little Pony's episode of Ogres and Oubliettes. This really gets an appreciative nod from me for having a great substitute for dungeons by using a strange word like oubliettes, which is a form of dungeon. And fighting ogres is no fun either, so ogres make a pretty good replacement for dragons in the overall title. I just really enjoy that. This episode finds the embodiment of chaos known as Discord desperate to spend time with Fluttershy, but she's joining the main six for a trip to deal with a Yeti, so she can't hang out with him. Instead, she tells him to spend time with Spike and Big Mac, who get together for a not-so-secretive guys' night whenever the girls are away. Extremely reluctantly, Discord shows up to say goodbye to Fluttershy at the train station, and there Spike and Big Mac invite him to join them for their game night. Discord decides it might not be so bad and shows up, but he is horrified when he realizes that they are going to play the nerdiest of nerd games, Ogres and Oubliettes. Spike is generously patient as he explains the rules to Discord, who all but ignores him. Discord does enjoy taking potshots at the self-fulfillment both Spike and Big Mac play out through this fantasy game, and gets incredibly frustrated when the dice do not allow him to do what he wants. The rules become a bore for the new player, and Discord derails the entire game trying to have his way. When Spike and Big Mac insist that they would rather be playing their game than pick up chicks at a speakeasy, Discord then decides to transport them all directly into the game, where he plays the part of the DM, aka God, and proceeds to torment the other players in their own fantasy. Spike and Big Mac finally kick Discord out of their game. Right then, Discord begins to realize just how much fun he could have playing this game with his friends, but he understands that he's been a jerk and thus departs. Big Mac and Spike begin to feel sorry for him because he's all alone, and they did enjoy his magic, making the game more real. So the two friends invite Discord back, but have him agree to tone down the pain and realism within their game, to which the Draconis agrees. The episode ends with the main six returning to see them battling their way through a horde of undead warriors. Twilight says they should leave, but Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie say that the game looks like a blast and join, becoming a rogue and a bard. This episode focuses more on the experience of inviting someone to play D&D than actually playing the game itself, which makes for arguably the most relatable of the 3 episodes I'm considering. But let's see once again how it ranks with the scales. This episode embraces the idea of imagination, and with Discord's magic, the writers and animators went hog wild. Spike and Big Mac, though, are using the game for a self-insert story that will allow Spike to play out winning Rarity's affection and Big Mac having magical powers, which is not a very original setup. But with the overall in-game story and Discord thrown into the mix, I've gotta rank it up there. 9 out of 10. This episode does the best when it comes to setting the rules and actually following through with them. Even Discord ends up obeying the rules, for crying out loud, so 10 out of 10! The episode does an amazing job of also setting up the dynamic trio of Spike, Big Mac, and Discord. Their short adventure in this episode I found very relatable, and I have seen similar interactions play out with other D&D players in real life. The episode's pacing does hamper the development a little. It also highlights their relationships with the main six and even introduces the possibility of them all bonding over the game. Sadly, however, that is a missed opportunity, though we do get to see the dynamic trio return for another Ogres and Oubliettes episode, and they remain friends for a lot of important moments later on towards the end of the show. Now, this is where things get tricky. So because Ogres and Oubliettes doesn't really come back into play again very much, which I think is a real loss, I'm going to dock it down just a little bit and say 8 out of 10. And I could rank this as a little bit higher if these 3 showed up more throughout the series, but that's where it's going to be. I definitely encourage some debate right there around my score, but once again, 8 out of 10 for the interactions with the characters. Now, this is where things get tricky, because once again, because they do return to ogres and oubliettes later in the series, there was that chance to build on the amazing ending where we see all of the party come together. Unfortunately, we don't see Rainbow Dash or Pinkie Pie again in the mix. That just would have been amazing. But this episode does set up the new trio, and once again, they show up later on. So it does have an impact as the show progresses. But really, since the overall plot is about the main six and their own adventures, Ogres and Oubliettes just doesn't play that much into it. So it gets a 5 out of 10, and that is a total of 32 out of 40, which ain't too shabby. And as a shameless plug-in, I've been working on a fanfic to play out the possibilities that the show could have teased by incorporating the main six into the RPG of Ogres and Oubliettes. I will have a link to that little fun fanfiction down below. Now, I have to say, I loved all of these episodes. They make for great rewatches, and they evoke so many wonderful feelings and memories as someone who plays RPGs, especially Dungeons & Dragons. And they were all really close. I dock Gravity Falls, which almost feels like being a bit of a Grinch, because they were making fun of the complicated rules, but rules are rules. And Voltron and My Little Pony deliver amazing standalone episodes. It's just that they mainly served as that enjoyable baited hook for the uber nerds watching at home. So Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons is our winner, if only by a hair. But my word is not the final word, however, on this matter. Please feel free to critique the episodes yourselves and comment down below on what you thought. Which of these three has the best D&D episode? But before I sign off, I want to give you some writing advice based on what I've observed and seen through my own personal experiences playing the game. Writing a D&D campaign into your story can be a wonderful way to uplift and connect your characters and progress the plot forward, but it is very tricky to pull off. The reason being is because you're now juggling multiple narratives all at the same time. I will also include a link to an online novella that I wrote a while back where I tried to have my characters go on a real journey of a D&D campaign. It is a sequel to 3 other novellas, and they were all a blast to write and everything, and this one kind of stands off as its own standalone, kind of as a reset for the novella series that I was writing. But I have to say, it is a bit messy, the one novella that I will link to. You have to know your stuff, and you have to be creative, and you have to be able to juggle multiple stories all at the same time. It's a difficult thing to do. And so it was a real learning experience for me. And so this gives you actually a chance to go and check out one of my own learning experiences. Once again, it's very messy, but feel free to critique that particular story and see what you think I could have done better when it comes to incorporating a D&D campaign into the actual separate story of something else. So yeah, it's pretty difficult, but if you want to get into it, if you really have your heart set on doing something like what Stranger Things does, where the D&D game kind of plays as a way to reinforce what's actually happening to the characters, you yourself then need to play a fair amount of RPGs and feel what it's like to be a player and also a creator. It really helps with your writing and with your character crafting. And with practice and with input from other players, the end results can be amazing, like these 3 episodes are. Really, my oldest sister, who I introduced to D&D, says that Dungeons, Dungeons, and More Dungeons is her favorite Gravity Falls episode because it reminds her so much of the sessions that we played together. But yeah, those are the stories that I really wanted to share with you in this video. Come March, you can expect a monthly episode now that will recount some of our own D&D experiences and the storytelling lessons that we have learned from them. Now, this video has gone on long enough. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I really look forward to seeing what you guys have to say. Which show do you think has the best D&D episode? I would love to hear from you. And after you've commented, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And again, give me your own insights to all of this. I really, really want to hear them. So until the next video, y'all, tschüss.